Hey guys, Firebolt here, and today I'll be showing you two brand new trading halls that I've designed. I'll first be explaining why I believe that they may be the best options for you, and then I'll show you how they work. Also make sure to watch until the end of the video because I will likely address any questions that you may have. If I don't, then feel free to leave a comment down below with your questions. There is also a world download in the description if you plan to build either of the trading halls that I've designed. Remember that these are for Java Edition 1.16 and above. I won't be doing a tutorial, but feel free to use Litematica to build either of my trading halls in your survival worlds. I do highly recommend it. If you don't know how to use it, there are tutorials that you can find for it online. Now on to the first of the two designs I'll be showing you today. One thing you may have noticed about this design is that there aren't any wooden trapdoors that you can accidentally right-click when trading that would cause any issues with the hall. This is an issue with many other one-wide tileable trading halls that use in-hall zombification. However, if you prefer to use wooden trapdoors since they're cheaper, you can use them if you'd like. I just wouldn't recommend it. The only thing you can right-click is very difficult to click since it's behind the villager's hitbox, and it's at the very top of the right-clickable area. However, this note block is useful because when you do right-click it, you can unblock a cell, or you can block it just by right-clicking it again. This way you can choose where your villagers land inside your hall, so whether they land around the start over here, or if they skip a few cells and instead go over here, for example. Like you may want the weakness arrow trade, which is good for curing villagers from zombie villagers to normal villagers again and getting the cheaper trades and stuff. In this hall, for example, I have the weakness arrow trade over here, but when the villagers are transported from the storage over there into the hall, they start off over here, and so when they travel along, rather than going into any cells over here, you can just automatically make it so that this is the only cell that's open, and so the weakness arrow villager can just drop on in right here. However, probably the best feature with this design is the fact that it has very simple in-hall zombification, which I'll demonstrate shortly. Just something to note about this design, there need to be at most 5 blocks between the workstations if you have a wall for villagers on both sides of you. And as a general rule for this hall, you'll want carpets or iron trap doors above each workstation. That way zombies on one side of the hall, which are behind the villagers back here, don't try to target villagers on the other side of the hall due to workstations with gaps in them, such as brewing stands, for example. The carpet helps block the view that the zombies have over here. It's a rare occurrence, but it happens. Unlike carpets, iron trap doors don't break when the block below them breaks, so iron trap doors may be the better option, granted they are a little bit more expensive. Also, the blocks here by the empty cells are only needed if you plan to have a wall of villagers on either side of you. If you only have one wall of villagers though, it's not necessary, just like with the carpets above workstations. The point is to again prevent zombies on one side of the hall from trying to target villagers on the other side of the hall. Now if you want to add villagers to the hall, you would first choose the cell that you'd like to add a villager to. Like for instance, I'm going to add a villager to this cell. So I'm going to break this block right here, and as you can see the light up there turned off. What you're going to want to do is right click the note block again, and then if you have any more available cells before the spot that you chose, then make sure that they are not available anymore. So you'd right click the note block so that all the lamps before the cell that's available are turned off, so they are not available. That way, the first villager that's brought into the hall goes into the one available cell that you chose. You can skip this step if you have just one wall of villagers. Just make sure that the cells before the one cell you want villagers to go into are closed, are not available, and the cell you want the villager to go into is available. You may also notice that since we broke this block, the zombie was able to have line of sight with one of the villagers over there, and that means that if we drop down a villager over here, that zombie will not target this villager. However, there is a simple fix for this, which I'll explain later when we're converting villagers. Now you would press the new villager button that's over here, and a new villager will be transported to the cell that we've selected. Once your villager is in, you can place any workstation in front of it that you'd like the villager to take and become the profession of, like for instance a librarian is connected to a lectern. So if we open up this trade, we got paper for an emerald and emeralds and a book for projectile protection 2. Now let's say you don't want projectile protection 2. We can reset the trade by breaking the workstation and placing it again. And now we have flame. Although that is pretty cheap for flame, I don't really want flame, so I'm going to do this again. And there we go, channeling. Let's say I have a trident and I was looking for a channeling book right here. Now we would need to lock in the trade, and we can do that by trading with any of their offers that they have. So for instance, they have the channeling book trade, which I can do that trade, or I can do this trade right here. So there I go. Now the villager is locked in, and by placing the workstation here, that lamp is now off, so that no new villagers will go into this spot. Once the villagers' trades are locked in, just put a carpet or trapdoor on top of their workstation. Also make sure that you lock in their trades before you bring a new villager into the hall right next to it, for example, because you don't want them taking each other's workstations, because once you lock them in, then they will stay with the workstation. If they're not locked in, then they have a chance of swapping workstations, for example. So as a recap, send in a villager, give it a workstation so the cell is closed off from new villagers. Once you find trades you like, lock the trades in, and then you place a carpet or iron trapdoor above the workstation, and then you can repeat with a new villager. Now you may have noticed the observers here where the workstations go. These are what determine if there's a villager in a cell. It's much easier to check if there's a workstation rather than a villager. For example, let's pretend like this is the workstation of a villager that's coming into the hall. Once it comes into the hall, we can place the workstation down, and then the cell is now locked. And once we kill the villager, which I'll show how soon, we can break the workstation again, and as you can see, the cell is now available for new villagers. Or if we just don't plan on adding new villagers currently, we can just block it off with a normal block. And then if we want the cell to be open later, we can right click it again. The cell is now open. This detection system I came up with is what makes my 1Y tileable in-hall zombification trading hall much simpler than others out there, and I'll be showing you the redstone behind it shortly. One thing to note when you're swapping a villager's trades is that when you're setting a villager's trades, the light may switch to say that the cell is open instead of closed, even though you have a workstation in front of the villager. This only happens if you break and replace the workstation really quickly, like that. So if we don't want it to do that, we can just not do it too quickly. See, even that was pretty quick, but it didn't even trigger it. So you don't have to be too slow with replacing it. And even if you do swap the light up there on accident by breaking and replacing the workstation too quickly, you can just right-click the note block there, and it'll be reset. So it's really not such a big deal. And also it shouldn't occur often at all, given that I don't think you would be able to pick up the workstation and then place it too quickly. Now let's say you want cheaper trades. You can zombify and cure the villager by pressing the lever here. That's all you need to do to zombify it. The villager will be lowered by the piston, and the zombie will target the villager and convert it. However, we do have one issue, which is that the zombie over here on this side of the hall is targeting a villager on that side of the hall. Now this is true for many trading halls out there, and so there's some info that you guys should know in case you ever run into this problem with any trading hall that you may be faced with. So if I go into game mode survival, the zombie is now targeting me actually. So if I move over here, the zombie sees me and is targeting me. Now, since the zombie is targeting me rather than a villager over there now, I can go out of view and the zombie will target the villager. So once the zombie converts the villager into a zombie villager, we can bring it up again with the lever, and then we can cure it. Remember that there is a 100% chance for the villager converting to a zombie villager in hard mode, and a 50% chance of it dying in normal mode, and then a 0% chance of it surviving in easy mode. Remember that before building any trading hall with zombie conversion. It's mostly just recommended for hard mode, although I guess you could do it in normal mode as well, although just be warned that your villagers may die. Now you may have noticed that the zombie back here has a stone axe. You see, you can speed up the time that a zombie takes to convert a villager by giving it a stone axe, for example, as long as the zombie you use has the ability to pick up items. The least amount of hits to convert a villager is 2. Not even a sharpness 5 netherite axe or sword can do enough damage to one-shot a villager. This means you only need to give a zombie an unenchanted stone axe to convert a villager in 2 hits. Note that I'm making this video in 1.16.4. There's a combat update being developed by Jeb, and that could change things when it's implemented into the game. If I find that once the combat update is finished that a zombie can one-shot a villager using a specific weapon for converting it, I'll leave a note in the description about it so you guys know. Also avoid giving the zombie a fire aspect weapon. That way when it's converting a villager, the villager won't die of fire damage rather than being converted to a zombie villager. Note that the game rule for mob griefing needs to be set to true in order for the zombie to pick up a weapon, or anything for that matter. This is set by default, so unless you manually turn that off, you should be fine. To cure a zombie villager, you would splash it with a weakness potion, or you would shoot it with a weakness arrow, and then you would right click it with a normal golden apple. So for instance, I will use the weakness potion here, and there. You should see that it's starting to shake a little bit, and that's a sign that it's been successful. You can also use a weakness arrow simply by shooting it and then giving it a golden apple. It'll shake, and also when the zombie villager converts to a villager, it'll be back to full health, so it will be like you never shot them in the first place. The villagers also won't raise their prices after you shoot them while they're zombie villagers. And as you can see here, I used an unenchanted bow, that way you don't accidentally kill the zombie villager in one shot. And as you can see, the villager converted from a zombie villager to a villager over time, and now the trade is much cheaper. And if you feel like the prices aren't good enough yet, just repeat the process as many times as you'd like. If you want to kill a villager, just have the zombie convert it, and then you can kill the zombie villager while it's lowered down. It may take the zombie a second to realize that it can hit the villager, but it will eventually hit the villager. There we go. And now you can just kill the zombie villager. Also try not to use a sword when doing this, otherwise you may accidentally hit a villager over here or over here on either side of the middle villager. So just use an axe in that case. That way they don't raise their prices, the villagers on the side, when you're killing the villager in the middle. Once it's dead, you can remove the carpet and lectern, and then you can place a normal block there to indicate that it's available, and right click the note block up here. And now you'll just right click this lever here, and the cell should be back up. Because this design has in-hall zombification, that makes it great for servers where multiple players plan to partake in villager trading in the same hall, because anyone can cure the villagers to get cheaper prices for themselves, rather than one person curing the villagers at a stop before the hall and getting the discounts for themselves before sending the villagers into the hall. It's also a good option if you want to cure several villagers at the same time. However, I would not recommend converting multiple at once though if they are directly next to each other like these ones are. So for instance, you wouldn't want to convert this one and this one in the same instance, but you can convert this one and this one, for instance. This is because when villagers are converted to zombie villagers, they lose the workstation that they originally had, and so if one of them, for instance, let's say we converted both of these to zombie villagers, and one of them converted back first, since these two workstations were unclaimed, since both of them were zombie villagers, this villager can choose either of these workstations as their new workstation. And so they may pick up this workstation, and this villager may pick up this workstation. Now this isn't too much of a big deal since their trades are already locked in. However, if you plan to replace one of them in the future, then it may not be the best idea to do this, because then you may be breaking the workstation of this villager, and then this villager will just be focused on this workstation. So this won't occur if they're spaced out, because in 1.16 villagers have to walk up to the workstation in order to mark it as their own, and this is of course including the ones on either side of it. However, if the villagers are spaced out like this one and this one are, then if you convert this one and this one at the same time, this villager can't, for example, take this workstation when it converts back from a zombie villager, and this villager can't take this workstation when it converts from a zombie villager. Finally, a common situation for players is that sometimes they just want to get a trading hall up and running with enchanted book trades, for example, and worry about curing them later down the line. This is something that this hall does allow, since you can, of course, convert the villagers later on. You don't necessarily have to convert the villagers and then send them into the hall. Also, to keep the zombie from despawning, you can name tag it or have it pick up an item, for instance, the stone axe here. That way, it will stay persistent and never despawn. Now, zombies that spawn naturally with a random item, like for instance a sword or a shovel, they will still be able to despawn, so you'll want to give them either a new weapon or name tag them. That way, they don't despawn. So here's a single slice of the design. As you can see, it's really simple and quite compact actually. For instance, this lever works with bringing the villager up and down, and breaking or replacing this workstation will turn off or on that lamp up there. Same thing with right-clicking this note block. Now this system up here is not one wide tileable, it's two wide tileable, and you can see that in the world download for this design. If you want to build it in your own world. I decided to go with this because it's really quick, it doesn't have any issues that I can tell, and it doesn't really require that many resources. Also, you may have noticed this composter here, which would normally, in previous versions of Minecraft, not be good for villagers because they'll take longer to reset their profession once you break and replace a workstation, for example. However, in newer versions, like 1.16.4 for example, this is no longer an issue, and villagers won't be affected by a random unclaimed workstation over here. And also it does have a fill level of 1, that way the comparator can give an output to this trapdoor here, which allows villagers who are wandering through the trading hall to land in a cell when it's open, and when it's closed, villagers would just go right by it. It also turns this lamp on so that people know the cell is available for new villagers. Also, this lever is turned on in order for this trapdoor to stay powered and open to separate the villagers from each other in their cells. That way, I don't have to have a wooden trapdoor here, which could be something you accidentally right-click and villagers would end up accidentally going into each other's cells, which would not be a very good thing. Also, this here is a redstone lamp. That way you don't just flick this up and down and the villager will accidentally fall through the trapdoor, which can happen if you do it too quickly. However, since the lamp takes some time to turn off, you can't just spam it and the villager will glitch into this trapdoor here, which would not be good. It can escape back here into where the zombie is, and it's just a whole mess. I still wouldn't recommend you spamming this because it is possible for the villager to glitch into that trapdoor. However, it's really not likely, as you can see here. So how this works is when you press the button to bring a new villager into the hall, it'll send a signal to this dropper, which will send a signal to this observer, which will send a signal to this dispenser here with a minecart in it. And that minecart will, since this is a downhill slope, it'll go down the rail, bump up against this one, go back up, pick up a villager, and it'll travel through to here. I believe it may take a little bit of damage, but that damage is not really much. It'll survive as long as you haven't gotten that villager down to like half a heart or anything. And so the minecart will break because of this cactus right here and be delivered through this hopper, dropper, back to this dispenser over here. And the villager, in the meantime, will be brought over here on top of this trapdoor, since it's the only place that it can go to. Then these pistons will push it all the way through this area here, and you may have noticed this top piston here. You may think that the villager is too short for the piston to reach it, but these trapdoors are bottom trapdoors, and so they would have the villager up just enough so that this piston would be able to push it and continue through the hall, and it'll of course bang into this trapdoor here, for example, since it's the first cell with an open trapdoor, which means it's available, and it'll fall down, and of course you would put a workstation in front of it, and turn off the light, and etc. So that's how it all works. And also, if you plan to have a two-walled trading hall, basically how that works is the villager, if it can't go into any of the cells over here, it'll go on top of this dispenser over here. This observer will detect that, put it into a minecart right here, using this dispenser, since it sends a signal down to it, and the villager will go across this rail, bump into that cactus, and the minecart will. The villager will be ejected over on top of this trapdoor. The minecart will go back to the dispenser over there, and then these pistons over here will push the villager all the way through here. If it doesn't find an available cell over here either, then they'll go into this water column over here, and they'll be pushed along into this little storage area right here. And then another thing you can do is you can have a way for villagers from other places, such as a villager breeder, you can have them go into this little area right here, just like you have villagers coming from the end of the hall into the storage. You can have villagers from a breeder go into the storage as well. That way you can get villagers into the hall without having to manually move them yourself. Now, of course, you can build this hall however you would like. Just make sure that there's a 5-block maximum of blocks between the workstations. You can design it however you'd like. Make sure to light up the hall. I didn't do it here just because that wouldn't really look too well for the video, so it's much cleaner this way. But of course, you can place down torches or sea lanterns, whatever you'd like to use to light up the hall. That way zombies don't spawn in here and cause any issues. And now on to the second trading hall design. So you may have noticed that this trading hall is much cleaner. This is thanks to having a system to convert the villager beforehand and then sending it into the hall. This way we can access the villager's full hitbox without anything in the way. Also, again, we have the iron trap doors, so there's nothing we can accidentally right click, except for the note block, which I explained in the last hall, which allows you to make cells either available or not available. Also, there's nothing fancy you gotta do with bringing new villagers into the hall, since you just need to place the workstation once they go into a cell, and then lock their trade. Also, you can set a villager's trades here, which I'll demonstrate shortly. An advantage to this hall is that there's only one zombie that you need for the entire hall, and it's sitting right in here. Another advantage to this hall is it's a lot simpler to build than the previous one, actually. There's less redstone involved, so you won't have to waste as many resources. To use this hall, you would first press the New Villager button right here. A villager will drop down in front of you like that, and you can set its trades by putting down a workstation in front of it. So by doing so, you can check out its trades. Now we got Silk Touch immediately, which is actually pretty rare. So I'm just going to get some emeralds real quick, and then we will lock that trade in by making this trade. You can also make the Silk Touch trade. Either one works as long as you lock in its trades. And also you can unlock all of their trades here, and if you decide that their trades aren't good enough, you can simply kill them here. And you don't have to convert them with a zombie into a zombie villager and then kill them, because there are no villagers that can see them from where this villager is standing. I would recommend unlocking all their trades before zombifying them or sending them to the hall, because if you unlock them later only to find out that the newly unlocked trades aren't very good, you may regret it. Also, whatever the newest 2 trades are, which for this villager are these 2 trades here, because we haven't unlocked the other trades yet, they will be the quickest way for you to unlock the next villager's set of trades. Now to zombify the villager, you can flick open the trapdoor back here, and if you're in survival mode, you can just walk to the side over here, but that way the zombie over there won't target you rather than the villager. But as you can see, the villager is now converted to a zombie villager, so we can close this trapdoor again. Now we can either throw a weakness potion at them or shoot them with a weakness arrow, and then we can convert them by right-clicking them with a golden apple. As you can see, it's shaking, so it's currently converting to a normal villager again, and it'll have all its cheaper trades, and once the trades are cheap enough that we want to put them into the hall, we can send them into the hall. Once the villager is ready to be sent into the hall, you're just going to want to make sure that you have a cell open. Currently, I don't have a cell open, but I'm going to open this one right here. And so now we can send the villager into the hall. To do this, we can press the Send to Hall button, like so, and using the same contraption as before, they will be brought into the one cell right there. And now we're just going to take this workstation here, and once we do, we're going to move it all the way over here where the villager just landed. Remember that only after you place the workstation beneath the villager are you able to send a new villager into the hall. Now, even after you zombified and cured the villager earlier and had the opportunity to kill the villager if you didn't like it while it was in the interface in the front, what if you need to kill the villager while it's in the hall? Well, a simple solution for that is to replace its workstation with a magma block. So for instance, this villager I got over here, I actually didn't need it because I already have a silk touch trade somewhere over here. There it is, the second trade here. So this villager already has silk touch, and so I'm just going to kill this villager over here. Now I'm not going to hit it or kill it with an axe, for example, because the villagers on that side of the hall can see me killing this villager. And also, while this villager is bouncing up from when I hit them, the villagers over here have a chance of seeing me hit them, since the villager will be able to share line of sight and gossip to them. And that's not good because it'll lower their trades as well. I'm sorry, it'll raise their prices instead. So I have a magma block here. I'm just going to do that, and the villager can slowly suffer. So now we wait for it to die, and once it dies, we can just, of course, break the magma block. And as you can see, the cell says that it's open, even though it shouldn't be. We can just close that real quick, and now no villagers will go into that spot. Unless you want villagers to go into that spot in the future, then you would just right-click it again, and it's open. So as you can see, this design is a little bit simpler than the one I showed before this. It only has the 3 observers over here for the individual cell, and then 2 more up here for the transport. Also, just like with the last design, you're going to want to have this cauldron or composter, and just make sure it's level 1, which you can do so by giving it seeds, for example, or any other kind of crop that composters accept. Also, something to note, you're going to want to make sure that the trapdoors are oriented the right way. Like as you can see, this one flips down like that and it flips up like that. Villagers will be coming in from over here. And this iron trapdoor doesn't really matter whether it's a top trapdoor or a bottom trapdoor, as long as when it's powered, it's attached to that side. The side that the villager is coming in from. It'll bump up against this trapdoor and land next to this trapdoor. These should be on the same wall. And that's true for both of the designs. Some notes about these trading halls. You can, of course, attach a water stream to each of them. Now with this design, if you want to add villagers connected to a villager breeder, you would just make a few modifications to this drop chute. It'll already be in the world download, so you don't have to worry about changing anything from the design. Because this door is here, we just have to raise this a little bit. They may take a little bit of damage, but that's fine because it's hardly anything. And like so, you can add villagers heading into this chamber over here from your breeder. You can of course extend this water stream, and then they'll drop down there. They'll take a little bit of damage, but that's fine. You can also move this to the side over here a little bit, but it doesn't really matter since the villagers are going to be killed by the zombie anyway, and so it doesn't matter if they're on lower health. If anything, if they're on low health, it'll be more likely for the zombie to one-shot the villager, if the villager has taken enough damage previously. Also, the breeders would need to be 48 blocks or more away from the trading hall, so that the villagers in the hall would unclaim any beds that they previously claimed when they were in the breeder. If the trading hall villagers claimed beds in the breeder, it would cause villagers in the breeder to stop breeding until the villagers in the trading hall unclaimed the beds over time. Now this isn't a big deal since they will unclaim the beds anyway, not long after they're sent into the hall since they can't pathfind to the beds. but it still can be an issue if you want to immediately start trading with villagers. Remember once again that these trading halls are for Java Edition 1.16.4 and above. Also definitely check the description in case I remember something later on that I forgot to mention. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you found it helpful, consider sharing it with your friends or anyone else who may find it useful. Don't forget to check out some other videos on my channel that you may also find interesting. Just liking the video or leaving a comment about ideas for future videos you want to see on my channel would be appreciated. And don't forget the world download for this design if you're interested in building it. That's all for now, so I'll see you guys next time.